Yes, you can access the static. You can access the constraints. These interface constraints using a static keyword. Why these are final? Because once you define a values for it in interface, you cannot change them. Let's try to change the values of an interface 1 equals to name, some name. Okay, so now if you see here you are getting a exception. The final field interface 1 cannot be assigned, so you cannot access, sorry, you cannot modify the values of the constants which are defined in the interface. Okay, so now here you have defined the two constants in interface, but in real time people will define the set of constants. Okay, let's say you have a big application where you want to define a thousands of constants. Okay, so people won't define in a single interface uh, like this. They cannot define like this. Okay, so what people will do, simply they create a sub interfaces, interface status interface. Then status interface, here I define the status related constants. String as string success. Yes, UCCPS. String success, string failure, string failure. One more interface type, string if it is JSON, string Excel. Please remember, yeah, if you observe, I am defining the constants, or I am declaring the interface constants in a capital letter. Because if you define any constants with a final keyword, they have to be in a capital letters. If you apply, if you do a code analysis, okay, using Sonar Cube. One more technology that is used for you know for checking the code coverage, code status, or code, what we can say. Okay, so I'll cover the Sonar Cube as well in future videos, how you can verify your code, and how do you do a code analysis, etc. I'm going to do a fantastic video on it now. So I have defined a set of constants in interfaces here in interface 1. Now here I didn't declare the variables now, because what we have learned, uh, if you declare any constants in interfaces, by default they are public static final whether you are declaring it or not. Okay, so that's why I didn't define here in sub interfaces. Now in sample class, let me access them. Access out interface one dot status dot success. Okay, define them. Sorry, I can access them. Access out. It's this one. Uh, type. Sorry, this one. What is the other name? Type. Small type. Yes. Okay. So why I have taken this sub interfaces, the two constants. Okay, you in your application you may want to access, or you may want to process the files, because sometimes what happens, people or clients will send a file. One client will send files in JSON format. One client will send files in Excel format. Okay, so you have to process if client sends the JSON file, and if client sends the Excel file. Okay, so how do you differentiate that? You simply define if client supplied. Let's say I am taking input here, type type equals ignore case, or ignore interface one dot type dot JSON. What you will do? Use JSON library to read JSON files. JSON file. Okay. Else f type equals interface interface one dot type dot excel, use Apache UI API library to read. Okay, please remember here I just written if else conditions to process JSON and Excel files. Okay, so in future I'm going to cover the design pattern, the factory design pattern, how you can uh, implement a factory design pattern to read JSON and Excel files based on a type, supplied type. Okay, I'm going to cover them. So here I got the exception because I modified the method signature. Now, what is this here? Test is not visible. Let me make it as a public. Now, so you just understand how to define a interface with a constants. Now, so now we are going to cover the abstract methods. Okay, so how do you define abstract methods in an interface? Let's say I'm writing one method, string get name. Okay, yeah. Here again, created I just created a method get name, and return type is string. Okay, so now I'm not going to write any examples anymore for defining the or for explaining the scope of the default and public. So now in interface one I have a get name, so I didn't specify any modifier here. Any modifier like public, abstract, but okay. So now in interface, if you define method any method, okay, by default it is public and abstract. Okay, okay guys, I'm going to cover the abstract methods in another video. Thank you.